And we are what's going on? What's going on? What's going on, world? Welcome back to Real Talk with ReZsaun. I'm excited about tonight's show. We have a very special event that we're doing tonight. We're facilitating a discussion about public school education, the privatization thereof, and the impact on African American children, aka Black kids. I'm really excited about tonight's discussion. We have some great people that are here to engage in this discussion. I want to go ahead and take just a minute to let you guys share this video out. Please, if you, wherever you are, let the world know that we are now live and we are now excited. We're now excited. We've been excited about this. I've seen lots of conversation going back and forth about the topic. And I'm ready to roll. I'm ready to roll. I hope y'all ready to roll. Hope y'all ready for a great discussion. I know Representative Mack, I see him in the background. How you doing, sir? We're ready to go. We got some great speakers. Let's go ahead and do the countdown and get right to it.
Great adult children.
Awesome.
It's definitely in the community. He did run for Senate 2 years ago. What?
2 years ago.
2 years ago. So
Let's talk about the founding of the Distinguished Gentleman's Club.
Absolutely. So about 8 years ago.
You said you're a mother. So how many children?
I have 5 kids.
Okay.
They started saying that I was their African American, and they got this from our president. You know, they were voted.
What were you doing when you were child? The first or the second time?
So I was in and out.
good. Awesome. So that really is a great place to transition.
And who is sitting across from me or beside me is never going to sway that.
Listen, man. One, I'm not gonna cry on this episode.
Yeah.
I made it through all of these episodes. I think I've cried once in Congress. What are the things that you're most proud of accomplishing? You know, as a congressman and as whip.
Real Talk with ReZsaun.
Hello, world, and welcome back to Real Talk with ReZsaun, when nothing's off limits. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you are here with me, and I appreciate that. I am your host, ReZsaun Lewis. Now, here on Real Talk with ReZsaun, everything's debatable, so on any given week, we could be discussing anything from sports to music to politics. You name it, we'll discuss it. For those who are new to the show, Real Talk with ReZsaun also has a goal of shining a light on the great things and the great people that are right here in the Low Country and beyond. And sometimes we got to slow things down a little bit because we have serious issue on in our local city, in our area, that's impacting our people that we gotta talk about. And tonight is one of those times. I'm very excited about tonight's discussion. Tonight we'll be talking about the privatization of public schools and the impact on African American children. I want to start out by just introducing the gentleman who actually called me about getting this started. I want to go through introductions, but I want to start with Mr. Kevin Hollinshead. Please introduce yourself, sir.
Hey, good evening, ReZsaun. It's always a pleasure to see you and to participate on your show. Look forward to a very robust conversation tonight.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hollinshead. Next, we're going to bring up Ms. Julie Husser.
Hey, ReZsaun, so nice to be here. I'm here I'm so happy to be with Kevin and with you to talk about it. My role primarily here is just as a parent, and as if anybody's seen the podcast Nice White Parents, I have been a nice white parent who made some pretty bad mistakes, I think, and tried my best, but also recognized some work that I've not done when I haven't elevated Black voices to talk about Black children. So I'm excited to talk about that.
Wow, thank you for that introduction, and thank you for that insight to the gate. I really appreciate that. Next, we're going to bring on a young lady that I just had on the show a few weeks ago, and I'm excited to see again, Miss Tamika Gadsden.
Thank you. Hey, thank you. Thank you so much for having me back. I'm ready. I'm ready to talk about this. This is near and dear to my heart.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mika. All right. Next, I'm going to bring on a gentleman who actually ran for Charleston County School Board in the last cycle. Great gentleman, ready to talk about these issues, Mr. Francis Beylottte III. Hello, sir. You're muted. Or we can't hear you now. Nah, can't hear you. Go out and come back in. I got you. All right. Next, I'm going to bring up a person who's never been on my show yet officially, but she needs to make that happen. Queen Christine, what's going on, ma'am?
Hey, how are you? Can you hear me?
I
Can y'all
can.
hear
We
me
can hear
okay?
you great. Yes, ma'am. We hear you great.
All right, it's my pleasure to be a part of this group. Like just about everybody else said, I'm excited to be here. This is something that needs to be discussed so we can make some real progress. So I'm happy to be here tonight.
Thank you so much. Next up, I'm going to bring up Miss Sarah Shad Johnson.
Hey, everybody. It's great to see you all. I did serve the last 4 years as the chair of the District 2 Constituent School Board. I kind of rotated off mainly so I could focus on this privatization issue. So I co-lead Charleston Area Community Voice for Education. And this privatization effort has been many years in the making. So one thing I've tried to do is just shine light. And so we just have to unpack it all and just keep shining the light. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you so much. And I'm going to try Mr. Francis Beylottte the third one more time. We got nothing, brother. It's okay. Go out and try. Come back in. We got you. We're not going. I promise you, we're not going to end the broadcast. We're going to hear from you. So you go out and come back in. I got you. And I wanted to save last but not least. I mean, he's the esteemed, representative. Just left office. Amazing man, has done amazing things in the Low Country. When you talk about the work, you have to talk about Representative David Mack III. Hello, sir.
Hi, how are you doing? It's an honor to be on your show. I've followed you. You do a tremendous show, tremendous content each and every time. It's an honor to be here with you.
Praise God. Praise God. Well, it's good to have such an amazing and esteemed panel. I just want to go ahead and get it started by saying this. Though we're having a conversation and we are the panelists, I want to make sure that you guys in the audience feel comfortable to share your thoughts, whether you agree, disagree, or whatever. Please make sure you share those thoughts here in the comment section because we want to hear from you as well. And I also heard, I want to go ahead and just put this out there as well. I've already heard that, there's an idea that there's not enough diversity of thought on the panel. And I welcome anyone who's interested in having an additional panel to discuss it from a different angle to reach out to me, and I'll gladly set that up for you. But tonight, the panelists are the panelists, and we're going to make this substantial and substantive discussion happen in a meaningful and a great way. So I want to start out with this question here. And I guess I'll go back to Mr. Hollinshead because, like I said, he's the one that reached out to me. What made you feel that this discussion was one that needed to be discussed now?
Well, ReZsaun, as you know, I served on the school board for about 4 years, and my knowledge of what's happening really grew from my support base in the community educating me. On the board, they kind of stymie and keep you from retaining information, and they program information to you. So having the outreach of the community and the love and support really over the last 4 to 5 months from leaving office has been tremendous. So this is the issue that we need to kind of discuss. We need to talk about how the wheels on the bus go round and round. We need to talk about how the wheels fell off the bus. And it just didn't start, as Sarah said, it just didn't start within the last 6, 7 months. This has been going on for about 4 or 5 years. And we need to make sure that people understand. Now, to start off with this is that within the last 5 years, this administration has had 7 chief academic officers. 7 chief academic officers, and I can post them on my page tonight. So when you're wondering why a district is struggling to excel in academics, the chief operator of the district does not have that kind of structure in place. That chief academic officer is the heart of the district that guides the district through these so-called achievement gap times.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that. So I want to spread this around because we are talking about this through the lens of how's the privatization of public schools impacting Black children. As someone who I know deals specifically in the schools, Queen Christine, what have you seen and what's been your experience in this that's been happening?
Well, ReZsaun, the problem is, publicly we already have a disconnect between the schools and the community, and that's pretty much where we come in to try to bridge that gap. So I think when you have African American kids already, and the community at large already not being the schools not already being transparent enough within the private school sector, then when it's a private um, when the school has become privatized, then that's an even bigger issue. Our kids suffer because I feel as though a lot of the times when the schools are made to be private, then they have the complete control. They can say and make the rules as they go along, and a lot of times it's not very beneficial to our kids and our community. And that's a lot of the things I've seen. I actually did an interview with, I think it was Channel 4, where I stated the comment was made that they were ready to pull the plug on Burke. And I was like, well, how can you pull the plug on something you're not even plugged into? So, more dismissive than they are already. You have people that are passing judgment on schools that they don't even set foot in. They don't really know what's going on with the people. They have not made a real attempt at trying to connect and understand what the real issues are and how they can service. They pull the plug. So, and the same thing goes on with this issue here. So that's why I thought it was very important for him to raise this point and for us to have this discussion, because you have some people that saying there are benefits. Well, please, enlighten me. Show us the benefits. You may have a few that benefit, but that does not help the overall. So that's where the problem comes in. And we have so many of our kids who fall between the cracks, and they're suffering because of this very important issue. There's something that they act like they can't see, but I know better. I see different. So.
All right. Who wants to jump in right there? I'm gonna open that up because that she just dropped a whole bunch of bombs there. So I want to see who wants to come in and jump in there.
I'll hop in there. I'll go ahead. I just want to lift up the two voices that preceded mine because they underscore, both Christine and Kevin underscored a very important element in this discussion, which is public input. Community input from the students and the family members of the students who are contending with this issue day to day. So I want to underscore that. The other thing I want to lift up is that and this is not to contradict Kevin. Kevin outlined a 5-year timeline. Well, actually, this goes back to the fall. This goes back to the Civil War. Right. This talks. We're going back to Reconstruction. Right. So coming out of Reconstruction, arguably the most progressive moment in our history, especially for South Carolina, we had the most Black representation among the Southern states. And the radical Republicans, and remember now, the platform shifted. Don't let nobody tell you otherwise. So back then, when being Republican was a great thing for the Black community. Right. The radical Republicans there actually created the first public school system that we now benefit from. Now, not only is that noteworthy and historically relevant, why it's important is because it had a function to supplant the planter class, right? So the moneyed planter class that had a lot of power, and it was still working to subjugate Blacks and keep Black underfoot economically and also systemically. The public education was going to be the equalizer. Yeah. And so investing into this structure coming out of slavery was critical. And so we've been at war. This country's been at war with public education being the equalizer, especially in Black and brown communities since Reconstruction. And so that's how deep seated this issue is. And we can't, that history has such a profound impact on our present times. And I'll go into later if the conversation goes in that direction, but we have to talk about how the racial segregation that is rampant in Charleston County, not just on the peninsula, but throughout Charleston County, the racial segregation and how these neighborhoods don't really, how neighborhood schools are being disinvested from. Christine just said this. When you take from these neighborhood schools, then the narrative becomes, oh, the schools are failing. No. Y'all failed the schools. Right. So it's a feedback loop that just goes on and on. But we have to talk about the history if we want to talk about the problem.
Yeah, because we're definitely going to have to talk about North Charleston High School before we get off this call. That's That's just the point I have to make because I'm a graduate of North Charleston High School. Very proud. And what's happened there is not something that I am happy about at all. I wanted to throw it to Julie because you mentioned earlier about your privilege and how you've been able, how you think you've sort of recognized how your privilege has sort of impacted the way you've done things, and maybe you see that it's sort of moved in the wrong direction, and you're trying to rectify that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, I think some of it kind of builds again on the conversations we're having before. I mean, as Mika pointed out, I mean, this is a state, when you really understand the whole history, this state, it was against the law for Black people to read, to be taught to read. I mean, that is, and to me, that says, I mean, that we need to keep that in our mindset of like, where is this? That is the foundation upon which, as Mika said, that the representation, Black representation said, hey, we want to make public schools so that we can recognize this and we can recognize the importance of us in the public body learning how to be educated. I mean, a democracy does not work without the opportunity to learn. And I think that it's not its best. I would say it can exist, but I think it's not about people having the chance to think and having a place to do that together. So I would say that. I mean, I think the other is really seeing. I've really noticed. I've said this to several other people that I've seen the schools in Mount Pleasant specifically. Some of the schools that are held up as kind of the model are very white spaces and proudly white spaces. And I think as long as we're kind of holding up, I mean, what that is saying with the models, the way data is used to kind of beat people on the head, to shame people, to really kind of call out this is not equitable. I mean, it's really, we use this equity. White people fair, what's fair, and what's equality. And so equality means everybody takes the same test. And we got this test results and we can see everybody should have the same and they should be happy with the same. But that's then weaponized to make sure that we're not looking at the equity to kind of acknowledge, well, not everybody has the same when your state started with laws that said some people couldn't read. So kind of goes with that.
Absolutely. Sarah, do you want to chime in right there?
Yeah, and I started by saying there's so much to unpack, so my head is just like, oh my God, I don't even know where to start. When I think of, Charleston County Schools, my kids have been through the schools. I've served on a board. I've got this group. I've talked to teachers everywhere. I've been involved with this public-private partnership stuff that's coming here. And when I think about the schools that just get the raw end of the deal, they are our Title I schools that in Charleston do serve mostly Black and brown children. And I think in my area where I live, Lincoln High School starved for how many years until it was closed because it was failing. And then I see the same thing for our Title I schools downtown and especially in North Charleston. Churn. How many years they get a different principal? And they don't, and what I think Christine was talking about, and Mika, the community voice, the public input. Where is that when it's just, all right, we got a new principal. 2 years later, we're going to get a new principal. Okay, these schools are now acceleration schools. They used to be Renaissance schools. Now so it's all these top-down initiatives that come in. Nobody's asking the teachers and the school community and the parents to come in. What do we need? The school district should be serving in a role of support with those, what you need is identified by the school community. That's not happening. And so now this public-private partnership thing is even worse because the school district has segregated 15 Title I schools into a separate zone of failing schools and said, we're going to look for third-party operators. We already have 2 schools that are being operated this way. Burns and Brentwood, and I was literally there in the building at Brentwood when it was being renovated. Never one single community meeting for Brentwood or Burns. At Burns, it was a school takeover, and it was announced to the faculty and to the families one day. And so and now we have, and the reason why this is such a big topic now, we have to educate people what privatization is and what's happening, is they're getting ready to pass a law in Columbia. I mean, literally, we are, advocating about this every day, and they're getting ready to pass it where you can have multiple public-private partnerships, so you can expand that. And it's just it's so backwards and it's so wrong. So I'm glad people are talking about it.
ReZsaun,
Thank you for that, Sarah. Go ahead.
I just want to share this for you, and Representative Mack and others can chime in on this. I have some information just to share with y'all about the public-private partnership. This information came from schooldigger.com. It's a site that shares factual information on the performance and comparison of schools for parents and the general public. So just to give you an example, the Meeting Street Elementary program, which the superintendent always bragged about, and we never got the full story. The 2019 last ranking done by the Department of Education in the state that looked at charter school and magnet elementary schools like the Meeting Street Elementary model, James Simmons Montessori, and Hussy Magnet are not doing any better than schools like Huntley Park, Lambs Elementary, North Charleston Elementary, and Springfield and Stone Ferry. And those schools have 100% poverty level within their schools. So let me tell you the thing about the Meeting Street and why this system doesn't work and why they're so-called milking the pot. See, they get an average of all Title I schools and it factors in, so they get about like $19,200, $19,800. And that money that they get on top of what the student allowance is being pulled for those other Title I schools. Now, those schools I just named that are doing the same without that extra money, they have a student allowance of $15,000, $16,000, $17,000, and they're making it work with low money. So the only thing about a private school situation, it's a business model. It's a business model for making money. It's not about being connected with the children and yielding a product. If they were doing such a great job, they would have been turning it around now. And to make it plainly, and I'll wrap it up with this, is that they took this model from a young lady, Cecilia Rogers Cunningham, that has a school downtown and have been doing great jobs next to Burke High School for decades. And so next thing you know, they tried to bring her on board and use her model, but she refused. So then they ran with this on their own, and this is what we got today.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for that historical context on it as well. I really appreciate that. I want to go to Representative Mack because there's been a lot of talk about, what's going on in Columbia and the current bills that are passed. I sort of want to take a little look back as we talk about this. And we're talking about CCSD, and we're also talking, statewide about, different public-private partnerships that have been happening. What have you seen in your time when it comes to the state of education? Because we know that for quite some time, South Carolina has been rated as one of the, he just went away. All right, he's probably coming back. So I'll throw it to anybody who wants to answer. We've seen that, South Carolina has been rated in the bottom 5. As long as I can remember, we've been bottom 5 in the nation when it comes to education. In terms of legislation, can any of you speak to what we've seen done to better this situation from a legislative level?
I'll add in one thing, just a really short thing. The House has a bill for private school vouchers with more than 60 representatives sponsoring it. That tells you where their priority is. It's not with public schools, it's with private school vouchers. So right. I just want to put that in.
Sarah, is that bipartisan? Because a lot of times the left gets on that bandwagon with privatization. Do you know the composition of that support?
I need to go back and look at every single one of them, but I know it's more than 60. And if people want to look it up, it's House Bill 3976. Mm-hmm. But you're right, it could be bipartisan.
Yes, can you hear me?
Representative Mack came back. Yes, sir. Yes,
okay,
sir. We can.
Okay, thank you. I don't know what happened. My computer just went out. But yes, everybody that I've heard have been right on point. It is consistent. It is consistent from the school board. It is consistent as relates to the state legislature. There is a mindset. And I think Brother Hollinshead said it. People are looking at the public schools as a business model as opposed to what's best for our children. And I just want to come from this standpoint. What we have to be very careful of is how we select members to the school board, how we elect members to the.
All right, looks like he's having some technical
Yeah,
difficulties, but I
I
think
was
he was
loving
saying
that.
how we select members to the school board and how we select members to the state legislature. I bet that's what he was going to say because I am a predictive reader. Anybody want to anybody want to add to that? I think
Well,
when he comes back, I'm going to bring him back in. But who's
Well,
that?
you know, we have a situation here in Charleston, as Sarah just got through saying, Tamika, I'm a pleasure to meet her for the first time. Um, we have a situation here in Charleston that Representative Mack, give me 1 second, you can take over.
Mhm.
We have a representative in Charleston that we have these nonprofits that actually landed in Charleston and took over our educational process to help these so-called privatization folks make money. So therefore, when you see myself, a young black man like myself, being spent $1 million to attack in the school board election for an organization that has $1 billion infrastructure budget, it makes you wonder why they dump that kind of money into that particular race. So we all have to make sure now that this concept of group that grows have to now a single member district. See, one thing the legislator did, and Representative Mack can expand, they knew there was a problem there. The best thing they could do was give us single member district. Now it's up to us to work our community to make sure that these guys don't take over our school system anymore. So I got more to say, but I'll just cut it with that right now.
Okay. Who wants to jump in? Who's jumping right there? Anybody?
I'm gonna jump in there real quick because that's that issue of dark money is what Kevin is touching on. Dark money has corrupted and corroded Charleston County schools, and when I tell you, it gets really tricky. What I'm saying, and Kevin has already kind of had the repercussions of this. What I'm saying can have consequences because I'm indicting a larger system that's insidious. And that larger system is the dark money through these nonprofits that they even have black EDs, like executive directors. They even they're in these black schools all the while handing out your kids, handing out tablets, getting the parents or the guardians of the students, connecting them with financial products that they benefit from because they are either representing a financial institution or a larger corporation. So now you have a surveillance issue. Now you have technology in the home that's from this nonprofit. They're tracking these kids from younger ages all the way up until they're at graduation age, and they're able to just keep black families under their thumb. But more importantly, they come in through the Trojan horse that is the nonprofit industrial complex. And we've seen that with the last race. We saw how competitive it was. And I hate to even use that word because it wasn't competitive. It wasn't fair. The thumb was on the scale. And so you have literally grassroots neighborhood folks, advocates fighting against $1 million and arguably $1 billion machine when you look at who might be behind some of these interests. And it's almost a losing battle. And we see it right now with the composition of the current Charleston County School Board. You see the composition, the writings on the wall, and you got to follow the money. And it doesn't stop at dark money. Let me just say this. Let me drop this bomb for those who are hip. It doesn't just stop with dark money. You got to look at these TIF districts and how this money is being rerouted from schools to fund buildings, to fund infrastructure, to fund more development that we do not need, and nor did anyone in Back the Green or on the east side ask for. They didn't ask for new hotels. Right. They didn't ask for new skyscrapers, anything like that. But all that money is being redirected from predominantly black schools, neighborhood schools, to basically taxpayer dollars going to these infrastructure projects that no one asked for.
Yes.
Okay, can you guys still hear me?
Yes, Cook.
Okay, so just to kind of spin off of what she just said, and also I blame those people, like I said before, it's a selective few. If they see quote unquote community leaders that they can kind of reel in, they bring them in as the face of the black community, and they let these people be the spokespeople for everybody. And that's lazy in itself, because then that way, if they have somebody, they can have them stand in front and say, well, we reached out to the black community and so is a representation of the black community. And we don't even know who this person is. And then you have these people that come within the black community to try to make some members of the black community think that these things that they're pointing out is okay. And it's not. And like I said, it's all a transparency problem. It's it's all connected. So those are the things that we need to shine a spotlight on. And the things that needs to be.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Christine. I didn't mean to cut you
No,
off.
you're fine. Go ahead.
But like she's saying, the ambassadors, the people that they choose, they also where I've gotten into some trouble is the influencer class, the young class of Black influencers who are trying to make their way. They're trying to create content, be local faces, and those figures, because they have a big Instagram following or Facebook following, they've been co-opted to now support initiatives that actually like when they were in Burke High School a few years ago talking about gentrification is good, you should know why. And had these Black leaders, these Black local voices telling Black people, hey, accept gentrification.
Yes.
We still got it. We still got it going on today.
That's still happening. It's still happening.
Francis. We need to hear from Francis. Francis,
Francis, you good yet?
Am I good? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Sorry about that. Let's talk about one school that's going to be important over the next year. Minnie Hughes. Let's look at Minnie Hughes, okay? Minnie Hughes they're trying to close Minnie Hughes. That's not a failing school. There's nothing wrong with that school. Why are they trying so hard to close Minnie Hughes, even though there's great protest from the community over and over? They're going to try again. Why? And it's because it's commercial real estate, gentrification, acceleration of gentrification in the Gully Geechee community. So once you tear the heart out of a community, they're helpless to fight gentrification. So that's really what this is about. So we have to look at, we had 3 commercial real estate brokers on this board in the past 10 years. No teachers, no educators, but commercial real estate brokers and attorneys on that board. That's what's going on. The $900 million budget for CCSD, less than 50% of that is spent in the classroom. That's a lot of money, and they're coming after that money. And the thing about private partnership is they get a free building. Charter schools got to pay rent. Ben gets a free building, and a free building's worth a lot of money. And that's why they want the public-private partnership. They also said charter schools have too much oversight. So they're going whole hog, and they're doing it because they got 6 seats on the board. You need 5 seats on that board to do anything. They got 6 right now. We lost. This is the consequence. I lost. This is the consequences of losing elections. So in 2022, we need 5 seats or more, or this is going to go on forever and ever. Thank you. I was holding back for a while.
Can I piggyback on what
we appreciate you? No, go ahead.
I want to piggyback on something Francis said. In my group, I have documentation of all of this, but this will just tell you how devious the plan is. Okay, this plan, which I became the privatization plan in CCSD, I became aware of in 2015 through email. Some people who work with Tri-County Cradle to Career Collaborative included my group on some emails, and then we have meeting minutes, we have video, we have all this information that we've collected and I've documented. But Title I schools are being targeted because these people in charge, these people that are pushing this, want to make it a nice package for these third-party operators to come in. So they specifically, in writing, targeting Title I schools because they get more money. They were thrilled that ACT scores were going to be used because it shows schools are failing more. And then instead of bringing in charter schools, they prefer the public-private partnership schools because you get the free building, you get all this extra, and CCSD gives $3,000 extra over the regular per pupil funding to Meeting Street schools. So it's just kind of incredible. And I literally was at Bishop Gadsden Retirement Center. Okay. These people were hustling the residents at Bishop Gadsden, telling them, if you're going to support someone financially, it needs to be a philanthropist. If not Ben Navarro, then someone like him with a proven track record. I actually have this taped. I mean, it's just unbelievable what the things that are going on that the general public don't realize. And so it's very disturbing, and we just have to keep shining light on this.
Yeah.
One thing I'd add to that too, and I'll tell you why. It's because they know that we don't write good contracts. So they get in, and the contract's going to be written so poorly that there's no way to get out without once they get in the door, the contract has been written by somebody who's like writing how to buy paper towels for the school district. I mean, they're writing it for just a service and this, and they're not writing it like Head Start. If anybody's been involved in Head Start writes a hell of a tight contract for public money. It's our money that's being spent on this contract. So therefore, it's really important that we are covered and that the public is covered at all times. And that is a different type of contract attorney and contract process and purchasing process and other things that's done. It's not buying paper towels. It's not buying something, because once they get in, how are they going to be held accountable? How is the school district going to be breaking out of the contract? So it's easy money once you can get it. And I think that's why they are really doing everything they can to push the door open, and that we really have to be watching it from everything from the contract down to to how it's getting in the door.
Well, one thing I can tell you, just to give y'all another example, at Burke High School, they're trying to bring in, that I was informed, at Burke, North Charleston, Stall, I don't know about West Ashley, but those Title I schools, they're trying to bring in a tutoring program called Saga. Now, if you go look at it's SAGA.com, it's an educational site. And if you look at the board don't look like me. They got one black advisor, and I couldn't tell you who he is, but they don't look like me. But the school district wants to bring that organization in Burke to tutor kids at $1,800 a student with a 2-year contract. So therefore, they're going to use college students to come in and maybe pay them $10 an hour to tutor our kids. They're not educational students now. They're just college kids. But yet they want a 2-year contract, which if you multiply and do the math of all the schools, they have a $1.5 million contract. So why not give that point to Burke and let the teachers that deal with the kids every day create a program to help the children along? See, this organization that runs the district just wants to do payola. It is so dirty. You can even look at the construction side. They have Cummins Mechanical that handles the construction for the district for over 20 years. They do not vet that system out fairly. They make a mint off of the district with change orders.
So I saw that I think Mika had some comments that she wanted to add. And then I was going to go to Representative Mack because he's back. Go ahead.
I just Sarah talked about the savvy tactics or strategy that they employ in going to Bishop Gadsden. They know where the voters are, right? And what the folks who are proponents of school choice and privatization, what they do know is that they are really skilled at shaping the narrative and to make this more palatable, because really most voters don't want to fund private schools. They wouldn't think of like using taxpayer dollars to support private schools outright. But you create this ambiguous form of public education with this private element. And so therefore you're able to go and campaign in these areas and change the narrative and champion toxic white-led philanthropy that has only divided our divided Charleston for generations. This really empty calorie nonsense philanthropy that doesn't even lead to change. But they're able to change the narrative, and that's all I wanted to add to Sarah's point. Is they're very skilled at changing the narrative so that people think they're supporting some sort of public school that's just new and something just innovative, when it really is just a private school masquerading as a public school, and it's not a neighborhood school.
Awesome. No, I agree totally, and thank you for sharing that so much. Representative Mack, you were speaking earlier, before you went out about the importance of identifying, what you're looking for in a school board or a state legislature. Can you speak a little bit more about what you're going to there?
Thank you so much. I apologize. I think my Chrome computer got tired of so much Zoom and it just went out on me for some reason. So I'm using my phone. But as I was saying earlier, everyone has been making the correct points. There's a couple things here. We have to make sure that we're finding people that are running for the school board that are interested in children, all children, whether they're Black, white, Asian, Latino, Native American, it doesn't matter. All children that have an interest in public education. One of the bad things about this is
two of the professions that I think are just set by God are nurses and public school teachers. And nobody consults with teachers or educators as it relates to what's best for our children. I heard several people mention about the economics of it, what the communities that the parents have less. Well, when that happens, schools have to do more, because the mindset should be that you want a good public school system. The operative term is system, where every child has an opportunity to learn. And that's not only the right thing to do, but that makes for a better community, a better state, a better country, when you bring out the God-given abilities of each and every child. That is not done. 47 states do not allow dark money to be a part of school board elections. South Carolina does. They can go after candidates and we have no idea who they are, where the money's coming from, and all of this. They can do all kinds of things that diverts attention away from the aspect of educating our children. So I believe we have to form a coalition of folks that understand that and understand the value of a good public school system. Because as was said earlier, there's too many folks operating the system now thinking about money as opposed to what's best for our children.
I agree.
Yes. I think to piggyback off of Tamika, I think the biggest fight with all of us briefly is us. It's some of us in our own community that help these nonprofits that don't look like us advance.
Yeah. So I wanted to. So thank you for that. And I wanted to, just commend, Representative Mack for those really poignant words about the process and about being more educated. That's something I think, in the last election cycle, we all noticed like the importance and the value in us getting educated on what's going on and being more politically active and politically involved in what's going on. I for one am encouraged with what I've seen, but I know there's still so far to go, but I am definitely encouraged with what I've seen. I want to come back to Francis because he hasn't been able to say much because, technically difficulties earlier, but what are your thoughts on when we're talking about this issue about dark money and not being able to identify some of those things when they're happening? What are you noticing in that regard?
What I noticed is that a lot of it's coming from Democrats. The biggest fight I had was against Democrats, consultants usually associated with Democrats, like Brady Quirk Garvin. Josh Bell calls himself a Democrat. And so this is not a Democrat-Republican thing. This is public school versus privatization. And public school means that you have a school that every kid who walks through that door can go to that school. Right now with these charter schools and these privatizations, they pick and choose the kids they want. And then they turn around and say, look, our scores are better. But if you need to take every kid who walks through the door, or I'm not going to allow you to call yourself a public school. And so, the dark money, it's not so dark to me. It's right out there in the open. It's just most people don't care to look for it. So
Can I just continue on Francis' point? Yes, some people. It's not that hard to discern. It's not what we have a problem with. And ReZsaun, I mentioned this while I was a prior, on a prior show when I was a guest. I don't think it's self-defeating to call it out. When we've got folks in our folds, when we got like I said on my post, when you got the Bill O'Neills, the informants within our ranks, right there to our left and to our right, we have to be able to call them out. Now, that doesn't have to look like fire and brimstone. It could be loving accountability, but we have to start calling out the bad actors within our community groups. And I'm sorry, you cannot make a cogent argument for privatization for me, for schools, for anything. So I do distinguish this as a negative, as a net negative, right? But we have to be able to call that out and identify for what it is and tie it to the moneyed interests that come with that. And we have to be able to not permanently expel these people, but they're gonna have to take a time out because you can't serve two masters. You can't be pro kids and pro dark money. It just can't happen. And I'm glad that Kevin, or rather Francis, you put a name on there. There's a couple names that we can rattle off who are not pro kids. They're pro business.
Yeah. I mean, I as a former educator, as a former teacher, I guess once you're a teacher, you're always a teacher. But I as an educator, like that's something I definitely believe is that it's got to be centered around the kids. Any educational efforts or any educational moves and motives should always be centered around the kids. And if it's not, then we need to get it out of the game, whoever they may think they are. And I just want to again just take this point to say that I do understand that people do have contrasting opinions to those being represented here tonight, and I openly welcome anybody who's interested in having that other discussion. I welcome you to come in. Y'all know Real Talk with ReZsaun tries to give everybody an opportunity to have their say and have their word out. So trust me, I'm not shutting anybody down. If you want to do it, inbox me or go to www.realtalkwithReZsaun and let me know when we can get you scheduled to come on. Not next week though, because I'm busy.
Better you than me, ReZsaun, because I can't do that both sides mess.
Hey man, you know
one side, one team.
What Michael Jordan say? Republicans buy tennis shoes too.
Nah. That was him dissing Harvey Gantt. Charles
No, I don't care for that either. But I do pride myself on my show of giving everybody an opportunity to have their say. So I want to make sure I keep that going. But I want to keep this conversation going as well because we're talking about the privatization issue. I want to narrow it down. So we've been talking really in grander scale. I want to talk in specifics. All right. So we're talking about privatization. Let's narrow down exactly what we're calling privatization. Who wants to take that question?
Privatization basically is private business organizations partnering with the school district to manage the school. That is basically this is what the superintendent and her organization is talking about now. She's trying to relieve herself of the obligation of teaching those children and turn it over to a management program to run the school. So that's what the privatization issue that we're discussing today.
Okay, so for those who may not know that this is the case, right? You said there's a management consultant firm trying to take over the school district.
Take over the individual schools.
The
individual Title I schools that the superintendent deemed failing.
Okay.
Yeah, I can speak to that.
Please go ahead.
I can speak to that because I'm the policy wonk here. You guys that know me, I'm the policy wonk. And so basically, public education is a public service. Okay. And so privatization is when you move that service to a private company. Now, people will play semantics with you. Oh, this isn't privatization. That would be illegal, blah, blah, blah. That's only when you send money to private schools. That's not what we're talking about here. In Charleston County School District, we have 2 public-private partnership schools that are run, operated, governed by Meeting Street schools. Okay, Meeting Street Elementary at Brentwood, Meeting Street Elementary at Burns. Burns was a school takeover. Okay, the teachers no longer worked for CCSD. None of these at either school, they're not CCSD employees. They have to reapply for their jobs, and then they work for the private company. You don't have state benefits, et cetera. You might not have that job. You might have a different job. But so that's like the pilot. And this started in 2014, this public-private partnership, okay, governed by an appointed board, not elected, okay? This is worse. For people that just, you hate charter schools, this is even worse. There's no elected board at all. I've filed a lawsuit, after filing a FOIA request for their financials. So this is a private, like I think Mika said it, is that it's a private school that receives public monies. So what's happening now, started in 2019, is our school district put those 15 schools into acceleration zone and issued a solicitation of interest for third-party operators or whoever wants to come in and manage these schools. And not necessarily all of them would be managed. Well, we had all of them apply from all over the country. And the public investigated and said, well, they've got a scam here. They're running a deficit here. All these problems. And finally, that's when we called the legislative delegation in to say, what are you doing? So, this is been a very public battle that the community does not want third-party operators from Illinois coming in to run our neighborhood schools or any other third operator. We want community schools where the community has a voice.
And and I think the other part of this, I'm so happy that Sarah highlighted the policy aspect, because what it also is, it erodes democracy, right? So she already mentioned that the teachers at these private schools, essentially, they don't have any, they're not state employees, they don't get any benefits. It's also anti-labor too. So proponents of school choice or privatization typically also argue for smaller government, right? They're anti-entitlement, they're anti-safety net, and this is just one more way to shrink it, and also, like Sarah said, to remove certain voices from the discussion. Therefore, really eroding democracy. Is no longer a democratic process. There's no public input, and so that's, to me, that's what makes it so insidious, and it positions corporations over actual communities and students.
Yes, and along with that, let me say this: that you want educators running the school system. You don't want, nobody else could tell somebody how to run a law firm, or plumbers how to do plumbing work, or doctors how to be physicians. Let educators be educators. And the other point I wanted to make, as relates to, people talk about tax money, and a lot of times it's wealthy people or people with resources saying, well, I don't want my tax money going here, I don't want my tax money going there. But sometimes it could be lower, and it should be lower income folks also. They may not make a lot of money, but they're paying taxes to say that I want my school run by educators. I want people within the educational system operating my school system, teachers that know best. I want to be able to elect school board members that let educators be educators.
Right.
And
that's pretty much all we're saying, especially me being a concern. Now, I don't have any children within the school system right now. Anytime I go to volunteer or whatever, it's purely for that purpose. And that's all we're saying. You see a lot of the times that there is no real voice for the people in the community. So we try to be that bridge, so to speak, to keep the lines of communication open. And a lot of the times, like I remember some years ago, we were trying to form a group to help with, like she said, when they label these schools failing, and you have some kids or people not able to read at certain levels, and they say, well, we can't get the community to the net. Can you guys hear me? Because a lot of time I'm going in and out. I can't.
You're glitching,
you
but
can
we
hear
can
me
hear you.
fine?
Yeah, you're glitching.
Okay.
We can hear you.
Yeah. So when we try to form these groups or whatever, then you have the efforts being overshadowed by people, like they said, that really don't have anything invested in it other than business. So we feel defeated. So it's like it's almost they're telling you what's best for you without actually asking us. Asking the community, and that's just, I just feel like it's like you're almost beating your head up against a brick wall.
I want to ask you a question.
If you have people that have this money that can, I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
No, I wanted to come stay with you for a second. One, because you haven't really said a whole lot, but I want to make sure you have an opportunity to have your say. But as somebody who does volunteer within the schools, on a regular basis, I've seen you, single out these schools that need people to come in. How have you seen the privatization issue impact those schools that you're in on a day-to-day basis?
Well, first of all, to be perfectly honest, the schools that we had access to, they have changed, because I would take James Simmons for instance. Like I'm welcome to come in and volunteer, but the way that the schools are ran, you have to go. It's different. It's almost like when I hear parents come to us and say, well, if the school changed, let's just say a school was a completely public school in the beginning, and then they overtook the school, and then these same kids that were permitted to go because they lived in that district they have to apply, or whatever rules might have changed, the guidelines might have changed for them coming into the school. The same thing happened to us. We weren't able to come in and engage or do certain programs that I was used to doing within the school. And the same thing can be said about neighborhoods that are being gentrified. You see what I'm saying? Because I had access to community centers that I don't have access to anymore. So it's a hand in hand type of situation. So again, like I said, to me, it just seems like the people who this really impacts, their voices are being drowned out, so to speak. They feel like they don't have a voice. They just have to fall in line, follow the rules. And that's just the sad reality. I don't see the benefits. And I see a lot of the times you have schools that are being closed, and then when they're and kids are thrown into other schools together, then then you have the issue with the overcrowding of the classrooms, and then disciplinary problems, and people feel like they're at their wits' ends. But I mean, it's just an ongoing issue either way it goes. Like I have not seen the benefits of it. Like I have visited Meeting Street Academy, and I mean, you can see what kids are excelling. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying in the long run, it's not been good overall for everybody involved.
Thank you for that.
Their grades are not passing though. They're at the 40 percentile, so they're still failing, and they're just doing it the same as the other schools I mentioned earlier. But ReZsaun, let me just say this for example, if you don't mind, sir. When I first got on the board, I carried a group of educators, former educators, community leaders to Atlanta, Georgia. And we visited 3 schools there, the Best Academy for boys, the Coretta Scott Academy for girls, and the Hollinshead Academy, which is the elementary middle school. So in Atlanta, now everybody knows about 15 years ago, Sarah, Atlanta was the laughing stock of the nation when they had a cheating scandal. They brought in these privatization schools in Atlanta also. They spent like 10 years getting them out of Atlanta, and these are 3 schools that they call their gym that they're mentoring. So I even had some charter school people who were on the bus with us. And I think the majority were white, to be honest with you. So they took one of these schools, and first thing they saw was this African-American staff running these African-American schools, and they're yielding a great product. But then what they're doing is it's a community school where the parents are involved. The community outreach works with the parents. Like one of the things that happens is the homeless population there is great, and parents are getting evicted and they have to move around. They keep the parent within that community. They have lawyers and aides to help that parent along. And stress in the home is a big thing when the child can't study at night, not knowing if the light's going to be on tomorrow, if they're going to be living there. So Atlanta has wrapped itself around these individual schools and is growing on partnering with people to make sure that children are very successful. And then at those 2 schools I mentioned earlier, Coretta Scott, that was mentioned on NBC News as one of the excelling schools in the nation, it's an all-girls school with a 99% graduation rate. The young ladies are going on to being doctors and lawyers. Best Academy for boys, we knuckleheads are hard to deal with. They're graduating at an 87%. And they're going on to be doctors and lawyers at premier colleges across the country. African Americans have to be in control or in place to be able to mentor people, not people that are puppets that you so-called want to put in place, like they got one of the school board members now, but they have to make sure that there are people that got stake in the game and that want to be able to move their school along. You talked about North Charleston. My heart goes out to the staff there, but the thing about it is, look what's going to happen in North Charleston. Everywhere around it is massive growth of apartment complexes and so forth. Now, getting well what's going to happen. When I was sitting on the board, those kids are going to get pushed out again eventually, like trying to push Burke out. But yet you want to close down Garrett Academy that was passing to make sure that you benefit one particular group.
The point that you just made about North Charleston is one I've been sort of harping on since they approved that tech building. The passing of that tech building told me exactly what was going to come after it.
Right.
I knew exactly what was going to happen. I went out again. I'm a North Charleston grad, so this is personal for me. When I went to North Charleston High School, I think we had a school size, I want to say, of 900 to 1,000 students. I'm pretty sure. That's not a massive school, right? That's not a massive school. That's a fairly big school. Now, Somerville High, my daughter just graduated from Somerville High. They had a graduating class of 760 something students. We had a total of like 1,000 to 1,200 students at our school, I imagine. North Charleston High School now, I believe, has a total student body of like 200 to 250 students. It's less than 300 students in the exact same building. So what's happened from 2001, where I graduated, to now? Well, a few things happened. One, they built the academic magnet, and they pulled out all of our top level students. Then they built the School of the Arts.
Yes.
They pulled the School of the Arts, and they pulled out our students that were gifted and talented and could do the things. Then they made the military magnet a high school. So then the kids who they're like, okay, cool, you just need an extra little push, and you have the potential, and so they'll pull those kids out. Those three schools gutted North Charleston High School. And if you look at Stall, you probably see the same thing. If you look at a lot of the high schools in the local area, you see the exact same thing. And now, whereas we would have levels, where we had students that, if you look around the city of North Charleston right now, look around the state of South Carolina, we got North Charleston High School graduates doing amazing, amazing things. North Charleston graduates with PhDs, North Charleston graduates who are principals of high schools, elementary schools, and like working on a collegiate level. But now, what is the likelihood of that? Because the levels aren't there anymore. You've pulled out all those students. So when people say, well, it's not a big deal what's happening, it is. Because now let's talk about what's going to happen with North Charleston High School. They built that facility. You just mentioned the fact that surrounding North Charleston High School, they've built up everything surrounding North Charleston High School but North Charleston High School.
Yep.
Can I just say this too? And this is not an indictment of a person. You have to watch the narrative around that school too. So ReZsaun, thank you so much. I learned a lot from just that lived experience that you just pointed out, and how they created all these different satellite schools that could have just existed as programs within the school, right? But also too, and this is not me trying to be controversial, and I'm not coming at any one person. But the story around.
Go ahead, do it. I like it.
No. But just because I'm not vilifying the man. The man is exceptional. The story around Principal Darby. Watch that narrative, because that narrative that's going to be weaponized against that school. The fact that a principal has to take on multiple jobs. That's the narrative to take care, and it has truth in it, right? But what they'll do is they'll use that as fodder as to, what, the school is just so struggling. Look, we had this great guy and he was trying and he had to work at Walmart, and you got to watch that narrative, because if I was the principal at that high school, let me tell you, when that microphone from today's show came to me, I would have talked all about school privatization. I would have took that narrative over, and I would have been talking about, look, this is a byproduct of what system, who did this. I would have been flanked with all the people on this call, and I would have turned that story into what it really is, an indictment on state and local leadership and the attack on public schools. Because no principal that ain't a feel-good story to me. That ain't no feel-good story to me. And give him all his roses. Give him all his roses. Give him 5 medals. Give him everything. He deserves it. But that ain't no feel-good story. They love taking our trauma and turning it into a story. And then watch, they're going to weaponize that against them students. Watch how they're going to weaponize that. Well, it's poor. Look at the Today Show. That school was doing bad for a long time. And it's not. That's not the real story.
It's not the real story. It's not.
You're right. Can I spin off a little bit what she just said? Definitely please. About the way. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, Cook.
Somebody was saying something. Oh, okay. No, I was just saying that the way that you're right. They handpick the gifted and talented, so to speak, out of the schools, or those who are more athletic or whatever. They get them. I've heard parents often say, "We want what's best for our children." Understandable. We all do. But that same thing should be applied to those schools that they deem to be failing. Those same, if we want to work to take the kids out of, I want to give them a better opportunity. Why not? Why can't they have the same opportunities in those schools? You shouldn't have to, listen to somebody else berate the schools or put them down and say, well, they go to Burke. Oh no, but I mean, he come here, instead of saying, okay, well then let's build up a team at Burke. The same thing with military magnet. The magnet school got its start on Burke's campus. I was a student at Burke when they started, but they were still a separate school. But it started at Burke High.
Yeah. You glitching bad.
Over maybe 1,200 students, and now is what 300. It's being repeated over and over and over again. It's the same thing. They do that. They take away the ones that they might they can do that, and then they get in the ear of the parents and saying, well, they'll have a better opportunity here. And then those parents are, okay, well, I'm gonna transfer my child here instead of invest that work within that school, within this community. And that's how it is. So it gets to the point where
hate that she's glitching so bad.
Yeah.
So should go ahead and just shut that down. Or as the guy said, let's pull a plug on Burke. With providing no real aid to the school to try to rectify or correct what's wrong. And there's nothing wrong. It was they did it purposely. It was planned that way. So,
right.
So that's all it is. It's all just a game.
Todd Garrett was
Todd Garrett was his name. Todd Garrett.
Sitting on the board with him. You want to talk about redneck? He never visited the campus. He lived right down the street from the school. I'm just being honest.
I'm never getting a Todd Garrett interview.
Thanks. No, man. Strictly redneck, man. He can sit there and used to see the stuff. I think I got some emails of him talking about Burke. And I had to show him the public leaders, and they just jumped all over and said it's a civil rights situation. Man, let me tell you, the problem with the individuals here tonight, there are no problems. These are good white folks. I'm going to be honest with you. We may have some differences, but they're here at the table. The problem that you have are the ones that think they know what's best for us. That is the problem. And then they're carrying the narrative of gentrification. There's like 13,000, 15,000 African Americans in Charleston County schools. Sarah, you're the numbers lady. But the thing about it is, you can't bust them kids all over the place and integrate them in schools. It's not going to be successful. But that is what they're trying to do, because the landmass in Charleston County, and David Mack can hop on this, is moving from the city of Charleston to North Charleston. Now the white folks that are downtown who are middle income can't afford the city. So they're sitting down living in Union Heights, back in Shakora, Cherokee, where whites used to be when I was growing up. And then other little pockets where they're building up in North Charleston. They can't afford it. So what it does to the poor African American, it pushes them out. I mean, and the same thing's going on in Hollywood.
Yeah. But again, back to North Charleston, just look at what's happening. At some point, in the next 2 years, within the next 2 years, they're going to announce that they have to shut down North Charleston High School. It's going to stay closed for about 2 years, and then they're going to open back up. And guess who's going to be there? Everybody who lives in those communities now. It will not be the same school, and then it's going to be a successful school. Watch. I'm just telling you, it's going to happen. And I also wanted to make this point. The only way you're not allowed to, the only reason you cannot like Burke High School is if you went to North Charleston High School. Outside of that, you should love Burke High School.
Hey, watch your mouth, ReZsaun.
You know how we feel. Hey, you know what we do. You know what we do.
We're right.
One thing I wanted to say.
Don't talk about
one thing I wanted to say before we left. One thing I wanted to say before we ended is that everyone has touched on this in the latter part of this program. This is a comprehensive situation. It's not just the school board, as I said. It's the city council, county council, it's the state legislature, because as Brother Hollinshead said, the economics will drive this. I grew up in downtown Charleston. It hurts me to drive in downtown Charleston now. I remember as a little boy, I could ride my bicycle all up, Ashley Avenue, Rutledge Avenue, Fishman Street, it doesn't matter. It's a whole different ball game now. And generally speaking, blacks have been run out to North Charleston, and now blacks are being run out of North Charleston, maybe to Berkeley County or someplace else or some other places. The eviction rate is at an all-time high. It was high before the pandemic. It's become worse. People are losing jobs. This is an economic piece, and unless people and I go back to that term, forming a coalition of folks that understand what's going on. People of different colors, but just having a set of values which says that they care about each and every child. And we have to put the economics in this piece also because it's all comprehensive. Because if we don't do that, we're going to be back here 4 or 5 years from now, and the situation is going to be worse. It'll be a new set of folks doing this, but it'll be worse. So again, there's no other way around this but forming coalitions of folks to get folks that have a set of values that not only care about public education, that care about housing, that care about people making decent wages, and all of those things as relates to the quality of life. Those are the things we have to do.
I just want to kind of chime on that too, because I think there's some narratives in Charleston that are really prevalent, and certainly divide and conquer is one of them. And let's throw, let's put this group against this group, and especially if we can make somebody be the crazy person, and then everybody's like, which side are you gonna be on, the crazy person or not the crazy person? And so that's kind of the message in the schools. Like, are you going to be supporting these schools that are failing? I mean, they're so problematic. There's just so much focus on that. It's keeping you focused that you say, oh, that's okay for it to be divided. And that is really where we do have to really unite. I mean, we really have to think about, is it okay for us in our community to say we are incapable of solving our own problems? We have to hire somebody to do that. I mean, that is so undermined. And I think where that also comes from is recognizing that this is a town and a community built on the backs of Black labor. And that Black labor this is a Black town. This is a town in which the culture, the money, everything has been on Black labor. And until we start holding that up and acknowledging that, we're missing the key point that when we get rid of it and we undermine it, it will shut us down, because the people, we don't know enough how to do it without that Black labor that we're built upon. So it's time to switch it around and really listen to people who are saying, this is what's happening in my schools, and hear where they are coming from and hear where they know about the schools and what's happening. And it's really, once I elevate that, I realize that we all benefit. Go along to get along does not benefit our students. They will not make it in the world in that attitude. So we've got to really hold up kids that have grit and know how to do things. And I'm telling you, they're in the Black schools and they are doing it every day.
So I want to ask this question, and anybody can take it. So we've had a great discussion about, what's wrong, what's going on, where they're going wrong. My question is this: what do we tell the parent whose child is in a school that is deemed as failing? Do we tell them, like, how do we encourage them? How do we support them to stay in the fight for those schools? Like, what do we tell them?
They have to be engaged. We have to teach them. That's what they're doing in Atlanta. They're teaching the parents how to be engaged in their child's education by relieving the stress on them and their environment. You've got to do more than just sit there in the boardroom and keep looking down at everybody and say you have the answer. And then the hidden agendas in place. You have to engage the people. People like Christine, Tamika, Sarah, Francis, and Julie, they all have to be involved and do your part, and then come together to make a strong fist. Because if we don't all start working together, we're not going to agree on everything. I had a guy the other day, and I have to give him credit, Elvin Spates. Man, me and Elvin were bumping heads. Elvin came back and voted for me during the election. And then he came back and he had to talk with me. He says, Kev, you know what? I was on the wrong side of the issue with you. But you know what? I see your value now. I'm just going to say this, and I said I wasn't going to say anything. But you know something? The Coalition for Kids attack, the Willie Horton ad that they ran against me was horrific. I didn't watch it. I learned something from Robert Ford. When somebody drops something bad on you, you don't watch it. But you know what? I'll tell y'all this. About 20 years ago, my wife passed away. And that was the love of my life. We were college sweetheart. We had 3 children together. My mental health back then was not good. I couldn't tell you what went on back then, but I can remember some things and some things I could not. but you try having the soul of your life taken away from you. And most fathers, when they're raising kids, will send them off to the grandmother to be raised in the African American community. I chose to raise my kids. Now, when I heard about this guy, and I think Francis warned me it was coming, but I heard about it and I saw it, and the only thing I can think about going back in the 70s, thinking about this guy that cut his ad with these Democrats is this damn cracker. You know, because that was a cracker move that when we were growing up, when we were living across the street from a white neighborhood, and you have somebody do something nasty to you, you sit there and the black folks would say cracker. Well, that was a cracker move. And I said, oh my God, I can't believe they did a Willie Horton ad on me. They didn't bother Chris too much. They just went after me because they want to spend that $1 million to get rid of that nigga that they know can think for himself. That's just so sad, man. I may not agree with you, but we can still talk. But you don't have to try to kill me.
I think an increased political education to Kevin's point, increased political education. We also have to decolonize what civic engagement looks like. I think all too often we think that parents have to look and act a certain way. There's all kinds of civic engagement.
Yeah.
And I think when we decolonize what that looks like and make it, because think about it, these parents are putting out fires. They got childcare issues. They got low wage jobs that they have to, work, maybe even multiple jobs at some point. They continue a lot of things, the stress that comes with gentrification and living in a city that's hostile toward not just Black people, but toward people who are impoverished, right? So sometimes we got to go to the community, and we're doing that, like with the group that I'm with right now, that's fighting environmental racism, and fighting the city and West Edge for what they're doing over in Back to Green, and what they've been doing since 1937, since the tornadoes came through. And displaced the Black people, but we learned that we had to come to people. We had to love on our folks, especially Black folk. Like we like to beat them down on what they ain't doing, where they not showing up. You're damn right that they're not showing up at a school board meeting because they ain't got no time. They ain't got no resource. They don't have all this disposable resources to just So why don't you go to them and educate them? And that's what we do. And it takes time to forge those relationships. It takes time to politically educate them so they know the contours of the issue more than just the sound bites they hear on the news that's not reporting it accurately. And I just think that we have to love on Black people, have more grace for our people. And we also got to make sure the people who have a different opinion, I'm going to use your varying point of views, make sure those varying point of views are cogent though. Make sure they're cogent and not a lot of right wing speak or a lot of nonprofit speak. Make sure it's cogent. But make sure they can discern between this message and that message. I think that's the key.
But Tamika, the biggest problem, I'm not going to say it, but these guys are the nonprofits call themselves wanting to be over the nigga neighborhood, the Black folks, and they're all white, and they don't even come in our neighborhood. They don't even touch our people. But this is like a plantation. They want to be over them.
But the sad part is that they are in the neighborhood. They've already infiltrated housing. They've already infiltrated the neighborhood associations. They've already infiltrated like you go over there
downtown.
Yeah, downtown. I'm sorry. That's where I spend most of my time is in West Ashland downtown. But you go down, you see the West Edge Harbor Club or whatever it is over the Publix, right? And you see Black folk coming out having parties there, Black businesses. They find a way. They find a way to get into our neighborhoods through other entanglements. But we have to make sure that people can discern between what these interests are. But it takes a lot of time.
That goes right back to the whole gatekeeper thing too. Like you said, they infiltrate through those gatekeepers as well that try to make the community think that certain organizations and certain groups are okay, and they're not okay. They're not okay. Just like you said with the whole thing with the Black Panther Party, the movie we just watched, how he infiltrated or whatever and fed them this information. So we have a lot of that going on. But just to kind of also piggyback off of something you said, we have to use at our disposal any means of trying to connect with those parents, because just like you're saying, you have parents that are working 2 and 3 jobs. So if you have to have maybe a PTA meeting or something on a Saturday, that's something that could be done. I said this before. I remember back in the day when we used that door-to-door method, when we saw teachers and people coming out and knocking on doors. I'm all for that. I love to be in a community. I am from the community, so I know that is so much more effective, you know. So I just really wish that we would use every tool at our disposal to bring awareness and to connect with the people and let them see their value. You have to remind people of their power and their value, because a lot of times they go along to get along because they don't think that they have any value or they don't have anything to add, and they think this is what they're supposed to do, that they're powerless. So we have to be, you know, oh my God, we have to, that's one of the biggest jobs and the biggest tasks that I see community advocates, community groomers, what I like to call myself. That's one of our biggest hurdles, just trying to do that. And I think if we can accomplish that, then we can be so much more effective. Me and AJ did a politicking for the people inside of a nightclub. If that's what the parents are, then that's what we need to be. If they are happy hour, they are crab crack, then that's what we need to be. The purpose is to reach them where they are. You have to use whatever you can. You know, I can't sit here and complain that I had a town hall meeting and nobody showed up and I know where everybody in the town is at. Well, I need to go to them. So you got to do what you got to do. You know, we got to do. I hate for people to act like, oh, I did everything I can. You know, I stuck this flyer in Billy's book bag and Billy don't remember that's back there. That's been in there 2 weeks. So I never knew. You know, so I was always grateful for the fact that even though I worked a lot, I only had one child, and when I was off, it was my duty to be in the school. And the teachers could also call me at work. They could email me. They had my current numbers. So I made sure that was important to me. That's not always something people think about. You know, not saying they do it intentionally, but I just feel like we have to use everything, pull out all tricks out our hats, and just make sure that we are making the connections, that people understand what's going on. Because a lot of time I think the language barrier is a big problem. I know personally parents who probably only have an 8th grade, 9th grade education themselves. So if they come to something and they feel like people are talking over their heads and they don't understand what's being said, then you have people like me that speak hood who can go and translate those things. So we have to remember that we have to connect and meet people, all at poor people, uneducated people. We have to do whatever we can to make sure we bridge those gaps, and that everybody know that they're valuable to the fight, and that they bring something to the table, and that they can contribute in some form or fashion. So,
but also,
that's what I'm here for.
But also, if the school was open at night for that parent with a 9th grade education, to give that parent resources to come up with a trade skill to go work at Boeing, go work at Bosch, work at Daimler Chrysler, or become a janitor to manage the program to work for those places, then we uplifted that person. We're not doing that here in Charleston.
Yeah.
And can I add to that? We have to claim our schools now, or we're going to end up like Indianapolis, where we're going to have to reclaim them. We are under attack. And Representative Mack talked about a coalition. Indianapolis, they had to form a coalition. If anyone wants to do research, Indiana Coalition for Public Education, and they're fighting. It's already happened to them. The innovation schools have come in. The charter private operators, they're there. And they've lost ownership of their public schools. And so they're fighting. And guess what they have in Indianapolis? Indy Rise, just like Charleston Rise we have here. It's a planted group. They had one in Tennessee too. There's a script for this. Okay. This is an attack, a takeover of our public schools. And if we don't, they have the Mine Trust billionaire-backed dark money in Indianapolis. And so they just had a school board race last year like we did. And the coalition, you know, the groups like us, they put their candidates up and they came close, but they lost. So that school system is still under control of this billionaire-backed corporate business, education reform, privatization, whatever you want to call it. They're after our public schools, and we have to fight for them.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate those sentiments and every sentiment that was given here tonight. I want to go ahead and begin to wrap because we're at 8:24. And I said we'd get wrapped up at 8:30. So I want to go around and give everybody about 30, 45 seconds to give some parting thoughts on this. I'm going to start with Representative Mack on this time.
Okay, thank you. I've enjoyed it. Everyone is on the same page, and let me just say that it's interesting because when I first ran, and every time I've run, I've reached out to folks that's drinking liquor under the tree. I've gone to the homeless shelter, and guess what? They have my cell number right now, and we continue to communicate. So everybody is of value. I go back building that coalition, making sure that everybody is at the election booth. There's two ways that people have money: their vote and how they spend their money. Have power. I'm sorry, their vote and how they spend their money. So we have to continue this education, continue it out to people, form that coalition, and make sure people are voting for people that's going to be in the best interest of public education.
Thank you so much, Representative Mack. I really appreciate you, and I appreciate your time. And again, thank you for your legacy and the work that you've done in the state of South Carolina, like throughout your career. Thank you so much. I'm going to go next to Mr. Francis Beylottte III.
Hey, thank you for having me, Mr. Lewis. I just want to add that what got us to this point was a deliberate strategy. It was a 30, 40-year strategy that deliberately starved resources from schools and then turned around and said, look, those schools are failing. We need people to take them over. And you need to think about the fact that the same people who are pushing privatization had the power, the prestige, and the resources for generations and have neglected and starved schools on purpose. You think about that. They have purposely neglected and withdrawn educational opportunities for children to be able to get us to this point. They have deliberately taken away resources from children to allow them to say this. And I don't see how that's any different from Tuskegee.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that, Francis. I appreciate you. I'll go next to Queen Christine.
Well, again, ReZsaun, thank you for having me to be a part of this discussion. The one thing I would just say is, like I said, to continue to partner, but have, partnerships that are purpose-filled. Connect to people, and that's not always being connected and partnering with people that you're not familiar with, people that don't look like you, that don't live the same places that you live. We all have something to contribute to the fight. I encourage us to do so. I encourage us to educate ourselves, to educate our people, and just keep pushing. And that's like the biggest thing. That's how you make the difference. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you so much, Queen Christine. I appreciate you and I value you so much. Thank you. Miss Sarah.
This is a fight. It's a war. The community can do it. We already have success. We are going to single member districts for Charleston County School Board in 2022. And that's because the community fought against some of this privatization and all this other mess. So just know 2022, all 9 seats are up for re-election. It is, it's time to get rid of all this mess, do what's right, let community schools be represented by the community, not these outsiders. And I'll just end with that.
All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Johnson. And hopefully you'll stick around. We'll be able to see you more because I like the way you think and I love the policy knowledge that you bring to the game. So thank you so much for coming on.
She's deep.
You go with me.
Thank you.
All right. Ms. Julie, come to you.
Well, I just want to, I got a quote, a friend of mine sent me a quote from Ben Navarro where he was talking about opportunity and the importance of opportunity. And it's all this kind of really words that sound so approachable and available and, come. But I think we really want to clarify, public is public. It is us. It is all of us together. And that governing is about making good community decision-making. So private is about doing something on your own. It's about you have control over it. Giving somebody money for them to privately control it is putting our public trust completely in them. And we really need to be paying attention to where that's going. Nonprofits are good. They're mission oriented, but they are not about making community decisions. They're about pushing a narrative that somebody's behind. Business is good. It's good at managing money in this, but public institutions are about making good public decisions. And if we do not have the capacity to make the decisions about our schools, what does that say about who we are? We have got to rise to the occasion and not just hand it off to somebody else.
Thank you so much for that. That passionate statement. I really appreciate that. Very well said. Miss Mika. What you got?
Yeah, I wouldn't be on the panel. I wouldn't be doing justice if I didn't stay true to what I think is important, which is the history. Francis and a number of other voices outlined the history, but I'm going to tell you again, this dates back to Reconstruction. Remember that. Education is the great equalizer, and our forefathers knew that. Our forefathers who served in Congress, who served in national government, they knew this. And so we need to follow that blueprint. We need to make contact with that history, and the history also that includes Septima Clark and her advocacy for Black students and Black teachers on the peninsula and throughout Charleston. So you can't fight this battle without invoking those names and bringing those names into the discussion. To the white panelists on today, y'all have to do y'all part. I love the facts. I love the history. I love the allyship, but I don't believe in allyship. I need co-conspirators, accomplices, and getaway drivers. So y'all gonna have to start collecting y'all white folks, because Erica Coakley said it a few comments ago. White flight also contributes to this issue. You got white friends who are liberal, who are taking their kids out of the neighborhood schools. Hal Wagner Terrace is right there, but they ain't in Burke, right? They're not over at Burke, right? So you need to talk to your white community members, and you need to tell and collect them and get them together, because their white supremacy, their internalized bias and white supremacy is also the problem. So we just need to do that. And the last thing I want to say is that to ReZsaun and also to David Mack, we need Black media voices. We need platforms that exist like this, traditional and more contemporary. I'm on Twitch. ReZsaun, you killing it right here in multiple streams. And my mama always talks about David Mack. You know what I'm saying? We need these Black voices in public, in the media, to continue to talk about this issue. That's part of the public the political education. These Black media voices, they don't exist at the Post and Courier. They don't exist. They underreport this on purpose. They've been doing this since they wouldn't report on Septima because they didn't want her to have sympathy. They wouldn't report on that, but they report on Darby, right? They report on that story, but they won't talk about the Black parents who are fighting to keep their schools desegregated. So Black media is important. That's my parting shot.
Thank you. I appreciate you, Mika. Like, so much value added. So much value added. That's all I'm gonna say. And you're a sniper. I just want to put that out there. You are a sniper. All right, Mr. Kevin, please.
Hey, I just want to thank everybody. We need to do this again, ReZsaun. This is heartfelt. I apologize for being so hard-spirited, but the thing about it is the children of our community, the African-American community, especially all children, are our future. If we don't learn to not use them in such a manner that divides, we can yield a great product. I can tell you about Representative Mack. When I was a younger, and I was sitting on the Parks and Recreation Commission, my first appointment, Reverend David Mack and Senator Robert Ford jacked me up one day, and we were fighting for the director of PRC. I was the only African American on the board. I thought it was very racist that they didn't want to include David Bennett to be the leadership of PRC, and I raised hell by myself. Now, I was young and strong then, but they got me, and it says, Kevin, okay, you made your point. Now it's time to strike a deal. So I got to sit down with Bobby Marlowe, who was the chairman. He says, Kevin, what do you want? I said, I want David Bennett to be able to be in position to take over this agency one day. Well, just do me a favor. We got this white guy, which is Tom O'Rourke, was a good guy. He wants to be a director for a little while, but he'll groom David to be the director. Today, David Bennett is the director of PRC and one of the greatest leaders that they ever had. I do believe in my people. I'm sorry. There are good African Americans that can do the job, not the ones that step and fetch. And I gurge at the ones, like you said, the Edgewater and stuff, taking that free mince money. But the thing about it is they're not putting the work in the community. So I'm here long as God has me on this earth. I love Julie and Sarah and individuals like that, Francis, and we're going to keep moving. And Tamika, it's a pleasure meeting you tonight. So thank you, ReZsaun, for inviting us on. I think that you need to do it again.
All right. So I'm going to give my parting thoughts before we get out of here. So I'm going to say this. One, I've loved this discussion. I've loved the thought that has been brought here. If you tuned in tonight, hoping to hear a substantive discussion about what's going on in the schools and how privatization is impacting our youth and our community, then I hope you walked away satisfied, because I believe that's what we had. I believe that it's very centered. And I believe, honestly, I believe that there was even a balance to it in terms of the diversity of thought. Now, you may disagree with what people have said, but I don't know what you can say that they said that wasn't true. And I think that that's a very important distinction to be able to make in these cases, as somebody who does value diversification of thought. Now, with that being said, as I mentioned earlier, I do want to open the door for a diverse, like another opportunity for to have this discussion. Now, with that being said, understand one thing about ReZsaun. ReZsaun was born and raised in North Charleston, South Carolina. ReZsaun is not going to let somebody come in and talk nuts in front of him. I'm just not. But I will give you the space and the opportunity to respectfully have this discussion if you disagree with points that were made. I'm here for that. I'm here for that discussion in a substantive and a meaningful way. That's what I'm here for. But yeah, I'm not gonna let somebody come in here and act crazy. Trust me, Mika. I got this. I saw to do this, but I want to thank everybody who was on here tonight. I am a North Charleston kid, man, so I will always care about Charleston County schools. I will always care about what's going on there. I will always care about the kids that's growing up there just like me. I would not be me if I did not take this opportunity to talk about Low Country Youth Services and the work that we are doing to help young Black children, young Black boys, especially through mentorship. We are having our big celebration this month of 12 years in the game of mentorship. 13 years this year. And we would love your support if you would go to our Facebook page, Low Country Youth Services, and sign up for our LYS-a-thon event, which is taking place on March 20th. It's an all-day event. I'll be turning on my camera at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I'm not turning it off until we have $25,000 raised that day. So I know that's a high goal, but I believe in God, and I believe that we can do it. So I believe in you, the community. If you want to help, inbox me and we can talk more about it. I want to thank everybody who's a panelist here tonight. We cannot have. Oh, Christine had her final words. My bad. I love you, Christine. Christine, go ahead.
I did say something.
I thought she said something. Okay,
Hello?
sorry. No, you good. You good. Okay. Okay, cool. I want to thank everybody who came on tonight. You guys. It's a Burke thing. I ain't tripping. But it's
ReZsaun,
huh?
can we say one quick thing? Y'all gonna see this come out tomorrow or sometime in the next few days. Tragic situation happened at Daniel Jenkins school over there in North Charleston. A teacher evidently called her kids the N-word that was non-African American, and it happened yesterday. And the district sat on it for a day, and I understand parents reached out to me and they were upset and were complaining. And I think they went to the news media, I believe, a few parents, but the district has not responded yet to that. And some staff members even reached out to me and were upset about that situation. But, you know, we are going to have to pray about these things and try to find a better way to bridge in this society that we have right now.
Yeah, that's definitely a tragic situation. I'm pretty sure we'll get a lot of news about it. Make sure we stay up to date on what's going on with that. In any way that we can support that situation or support the youth that are being traumatized within the schools with people like that who think like that. We definitely need to make sure that we're banding together to do something about that. But again, I want to thank everybody for such a great conversation tonight. I've enjoyed it. I hope everybody who watched it enjoyed it. If you enjoyed it, do one of those things where they like give you hearts or something like that. I never know what to say about that, but like it, follow me everywhere, follow them everywhere, because these are people that really care about it. They're boots on the ground, they're doing the work, and there's not enough people doing the work. So if you were inspired tonight, that's the last call to action I want to make, is if you were inspired tonight to take action in the work that's being done, trust me, many hands make for less work. Many hands make for a much further travel. So we got to work together to get to wherever it is that you think we need to get to. So please get active. Whatever active means to you, do that and do it now, because tomorrow may not be available for us. With that being said, always remember that God is everything, and without him, we are nothing. So never forget where your help comes from. And if a man doesn't stand for something, he's bound to fall for anything. Now that's real talk. I will see y'all next Wednesday. Peace.
Thank you, ReZsaun.